Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of In the Box, episode 23. Babiak, how are we doing?
We're doing pretty great right now. It's cool that we've made it this far. 23 episodes.
Yeah, the original Mike Partner show only made it to like 13, so we're double that at this point. We got like a week left in the regular season. We're gonna be talking about Demidov coming over to North America, playing for the Montreal Canadiens, what that could potentially mean for their first round matchup against the Washington Capitals that are going through it a little bit. Speaking of the Capitals, Ovechkin, we were in the building for the 895 game. We're gonna talk about Brock Boeser looking like he's gonna be leaving Vancouver. Zane Parekh getting called up by the Flames just to sit in the press box. Gabe Perreault as well, being a healthy scratch. We're going to give out one dark horse for the Stanley Cup. Isaac Howard might not be signing with the Tampa Bay Lightning now. That was a little bit surprising. And then we're going to go over some of your follower takes. So yeah, we got a decent amount to talk about. You ready?
Let's dive into it.
Hi, Ivan Demidov coming over. It was expected like a month ago. It was reported that SKA St. Petersburg were going to kind of be dicks with him and just say like, you're going to play in the VHL or MHL playoffs because you don't want to sign an extension because you're not playing ball. Apparently something got done and now he's already on his way to Montreal. I think he can be an instant impact guy for them. It might take a game or two in the regular season, but I think come playoff time, he's right off rip, probably their fifth or sixth best forward. Offensively, probably their second or third, I think, right off the rip. But yeah, it's huge if you're Montreal. You expected him to come this summer. We talked about before, there were benefits to him coming this summer, not burning a year off that ELC, but just getting him there is perfectly fine in my book. You're not sweating that year of the ELC being gone, but what's your initial rip? You're a little bit lower on Ivan Demidov than I am.
I'm just, I guess, a little more skeptical about immediate impact. I mean, it's being thrown into a totally new environment, completely new team, new teammates, new country, new ice. The rinks are a different size in the U.S. versus the KHL. I'm not at all dissing him career-wise. I'm just kind of skeptical that the Russian teenager with 40-some career games in a major league is going to be an instant playoff impact top six guy. Next season, I think, give you maybe 30 goals, 60 points, be happy with that. Can you toss him on the second line immediately and feel good about your playoff team? I'm not saying you can't. I'm saying I'm skeptical, and he hasn't really proven anything yet in a best-on-best type environment, right? Because he hasn't got the opportunity to play in any World Juniors either. Mm-hmm. Russia hasn't been invited to those the last couple years. So there's just question marks I have.
Yeah, and I think if he does struggle, I'm not going to take anything away. Like if he plays 3 regular season games, has 1 point, plays 6 playoff games, and only has a point or 2, I'm not going to overreact. But yeah, in terms of the playoffs, in the KHL playoffs, although they lost in the first round, he did have 3 goals, 2 assists, and 5 points, despite not even playing that much like he has throughout the year. I just think the talent and the playmaking is so there with this kid. And when looking at what their second line is right now, it's like Kapanen, Line, and Newhook. Like it's pretty shit. I like guys like Anderson, Gallagher on that third line, but in terms of dynamic offensive playmakers, again, as I mentioned before, I think he's like the fourth or fifth best forward, basically right off the rip. Just what this guy can do, the high IQ plays that he can make is something that I think is really going to surprise some people. And as we talked about before, he's definitely the Calder favorite right now. In terms of the Canadians kind of parlaying this into their first round matchup, I think that they're going to have a legit chance against the Washington Capitals, because when looking at Washington, Protas and Thompson are both not practicing or even skating with the team right now. So if you don't have those two against Washington, and Montreal has all the vibes in the world, they're 14-4-4 in their last 22 games. I think that it would be, if you told me that they don't have Protas or Thompson for the first half of the season, I think it's like a 59%, 41% in terms of the Washington Capitals still being favored against Montreal Canadiens, but I think that they're going to have a legit chance with Demidov. What do you think?
I think they do have a real chance with or without Demidov. The biggest thing is by far Logan Thompson's health. Protas, I'm not super concerned about in the sense that I think you can plug and play Ryan Leonard without losing a whole lot there. But the drop-off from Logan Thompson to Charlie Lindgren seems pretty huge right now. Lindgren has had some nice streaks in the past. He hasn't had any of those this season. It's been really rough, especially since Thompson's went out and Lindgren's had to be the number one guy. They're losing a lot of games that they should be winning. I mean, this crazy Ovechkin goal streak of scoring, what was it, 8 and 5 to get the record. Washington only went 2 and 3 in that stretch.
Yeah.
And, they were not losing to great teams. They were losing to Boston and Buffalo.
We saw Gatcombe put 2 goals down on them.
The Islanders just beat them 5-1 in the record game. So, I mean, it's, maybe you can say, oh, well, the goal chase possibly sort of a distraction for Washington and they'll play tighter hockey now. That might be true, but I think it's fundamentally true that if Charlie Lindgren's my goalie in April, I'm not feeling too great about myself.
Yeah, it just stinks because you're Washington Capitals. You basically lock up the 1 seed with like a month to go, and you think that, we're just gonna maybe get the goal record, then rest guys the final couple of games, and it's been the opposite. Protas takes like a freak cut that now has him out. Thompson is going to be out. Like they're coming in hobbling, and they're going to be going up against one of the hottest teams in the NHL. I think if Montreal somehow steals one of those first 2 games and goes back to the Bell Center, they honestly would take control of the series, and I would honestly pick them at this point. They have like devil magic. Teams get claimed like this, the Kansas City's Chiefs or something like that. They just seem like a team of almost destiny, and now I'm talking myself into potentially picking the Montreal Canadiens to win in the first round.
I mean, Washington versus Montreal was one of the most famous 8-seed upset 1 seeds in NHL history. That was, 15 years ago, I think, at this point, the Halak series.
Yeah, and in 2021, they called up Cole Caulfield, a skilled young winger, and ended up going on a deep playoff run. Not saying that Ivan Demidov and the Montreal Canadiens are going to have that yet again, but yeah, Montreal, man, the way that they've just separated themselves from the rest of the Eastern Conference and has just been playing so good down the stretch, it's really encouraging. And again, we don't think they're going to go on some kind of deep playoff run, but if they could somehow beat the Washington Capitals, man, they are the premier team 5 to 6 years from now, I would say, in terms of what they're building and how impressive that they've been between Lane Hudson, Demidov, Caulfield, Suzuki. It's a fucking good time to be a Washington Capitals fan or Montreal Canadiens fan. My God.
Yeah,
anything else on that?
I do, because the one thing that I think is encouraging as far as can Montreal sustain this is that it's not fluke guys contributing. It's the stars leading the team. I mean, Nick Suzuki has gone nuclear over the last couple weeks, especially on this winning streak. Lane Hudson's playing better and better hockey. I wanted to fact check in on his defense throughout the year.
Yeah, you were trashing him.
And there is something to it, okay? In calendar year 2024, 3 expected goals against per 60. Since January 1st, he's got that down to 2.65, which is not 2.65 is not the greatest number in the world, but his offense is contributing a lot more than his defense is giving. He has tightened up on defense noticeably in the second half of the year, and the numbers prove it. So that's a very encouraging sign to me that he's getting better and better as the year's going on. And the same really with Nick Suzuki. It's, if you ask me on December 31st of last year, is he like a true 1C, a playoff team 1C? I would have quite a few doubts. Right now, I have no doubts. He's a very good all-around center, does a little bit of everything and a lot of playmaking.
Yeah, him and Hudson have probably been the best duo in the entire NHL since 4 Nations, at least. Suzuki has really solidified himself as that true number 1 center. You could still argue, like, on an actual championship-winning team, is he a 1C, unless he has legit superstar wingers, but he's pretty much solidified himself as a top 15 1C and separated himself from other guys in his division, like a Tim Stützle. Stützle's still young and could improve, or like a Dylan Larkin in terms of like that. Those are the guys that he's been compared to of recent years, and right now, it's not really a debate in terms of that. Still not in like the Jack Eichel, Braden Point kind of tier, Jack Hughes, but he's definitely. It's gonna be interesting to see where I have him in my top 30, and that might be one of the follower takes that we go over later. Not to hint towards anything, it is, but yeah, Nick Suzuki has been awesome. Your boy Uri Slavkovsky, that's the next Mikko Rantanen, according to Baviak, is playoff built and gonna be a playoff beast. The 2C is the one concern. Maybe they'll have Demidov play center because that is just such a weakness right now. Michael Hage could maybe fill it down the line, but that's the one thing that they need to fill in terms of maybe becoming a true playoff threat next season. I
I
would say.
mean, there are. Let's be clear. There are other weaknesses, right? If you're talking, how do we turn this team into a true contender?
You need a
You'd
number two
like to
defenseman.
upgrade at goalie. You definitely need a better number 2 defenseman, like that Ryan McDonough type, defensive leaning first pair quality guy. They have no one approaching that right now.
You hope that Gouli can be a 30 to 35 point.
That's
very
the
good defensive
ambition
guy.
there.
McDonough is he's not gonna be McDonough. McDonough was a legit top 15 defenseman in his prime, and then became one of the best defensive defensemen in the NHL for Tampa Bay when he had to adjust. But yeah, I wouldn't hold hope. Hopefully, in like the aggregate of David Reinbacher, Gouli as your 2-3, that can make up for maybe not having like a star 2, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
So
I
you
hear
have
what you're saying there.
two very good number 3s on a playoff team. You definitely would love to bring in elite number 2, but I think that second line center is definitely the one thing where if you believe in Michael Hage, you let it ride out and just maybe get some support within the forward core. But if not, I don't know who would be available this summer in terms of targeting that. But that's the one thing that Kent Hughes, there's a definitive need for, and no guy in the next 1 to 2 years that is going to fill it, because Michael Hage is still only 19 years old.
Agreed on that. Yep.
Yeah, we're going to move on from the Montreal Canadiens. We're going to talk about just the Ovechkin goal record because we were there. It was awesome. We were smart and bought the tickets ahead of time on Wednesday for like $135 each. It was an electric atmosphere. Like I might have been displaying some cuck behaviors rooting for it, but like if you're a hockey fan, the Islanders season is already over at that point, even with them winning that game. Like, if they were in a playoff battle race, maybe I wouldn't be rooting so heavily for the goal record. But it was truly, you could feel it in the air every time that he touched the puck. Just silence, and just the most bullshit. I think there was one shot that didn't even make it to the net, and everybody was like, "Oh!" like thinking that it would happen. It was truly the most unique experience I've ever had watching a game. Because when he was off the ice, like people weren't even paying attention. But once he got on the ice, people were more so just staring at the bench when he wasn't on the ice than watching the actual game. What was your reaction to going to it and seeing history?
Yeah, I mean, it's always fun to see something that no one's ever seen before, right? Stopping the game, rolling out a carpet for 15 minutes. No one's seen that before.
That was actual cuck behavior.
It did become very obvious the extent to which Washington was terrified of playing him in the defensive zone or in any defensive positions, which isn't something you really notice until you spend all of that time staring at him on the bench. Like, there were entire shifts where his line was on
4 to 5
and he would
minutes
be
that
skipped over. He played the fewest minutes on the team in the first period, I believe.
Yeah, it was like 4 minutes, 15 seconds or something ridiculous like that. We were like, oh, Schroem's on the ice. Where the hell is Ovechkin? Thankfully, he sits at the end of the bench, so it's easy to tell, and he's a big ass dude. But yeah, we documented that. It was awesome, and it was pretty funny just how many people left immediately after it, especially because the Capitals were down 2-1. Probably like 25% of the building just dipped, just said, I got enough. I'll make the earlier Amtrak train or something like that, catch the LIRR. But yeah, history went down, and we were there to witness it. Wayne Gretzky's speech was a little bit too long. He was kind of talking for a bit.
I thought it was a little interesting, actually. I think it's good that it happened in the U.S. because I think if he happened to break the record in Canada, Gretzky would be booed just as much as Gary Bettman was.
Yeah.
I imagine if this happened in Toronto or Montreal or Ottawa,
that would have been
Gretzky would get Bettman level boos from the crowd.
Yeah.
But the Islanders crowd was happy to see him and supportive.
We booed heavy for Bettman
And
and when Gretzky
Ted
brought up the
Leonis, because I do want to address this point right here, right? Thank goodness the actual worst place for him to break the record would be Alexandria, Virginia, which is where Leonis was trying to move them a season and a half ago. Thank goodness that didn't happen. Any Capitals fan who's supporting Ted Leonis as an owner just because the team is winning now, that's the real cuck behavior right there. He was willing to rob your team from you for a tax break.
Yeah, he pushed around the city board, though, and eventually got like his $400 million of public funding. But yeah, most billionaire owners are not exactly the best, nicest people in the world. But yeah, that Canadian factor would have been very interesting. Thankfully, they were smart in like playing like their final 8 games were either at home or like in the Metro Division. Like, what was it? The next road game was Columbus,
which
then
is a
after that,
doable drive from DC.
Yeah, then I think it was Pittsburgh after that. Then it was back to Long Island. So like, they handled this perfect. Like the NHL, we shit on them as like a lot, but what we've seen the last 2 months from them. Four Nations deadline was decently electric, and now the goal chase, and now unfortunately the playoff race kind of just sucks this last week. It's basically locked up at this point. But yeah, it's been awesome. It would have been a little bit cooler to see it maybe drag on a little bit longer, just to like get more buzz around hockey, especially considering this wild card race. But as New York City area based people, we are very happy that we got to see it, because I was not going to the game on Thursday when tickets would have been $800-900. Do we think anybody ever sniffs the goal record?
I mean, never say never, right? Because the goal scoring environment of the NHL has changed so much throughout the years. I mean, if you ask someone in like 2002, will anyone ever touch Gretzky's record? No chance. Scoring is way down. Then scoring went way up as of like 5 or 6 years ago, and it became possible again.
Yeah, people were winning the Rocket with like, I think Rick Nash won it with like 41 goals or something.
It was
like
in
that.
the 40s for most of the 2000s.
Yeah, it's gonna need the perfect blend of someone that debuts immediately, never gets hurt. The thing is, like, it's going to make it interesting. We've mentioned it before. It really just comes down to like when Ovechkin retires. If he retires after next season and it's 930, it's definitely possible. But if he goes to, as long as we think that he can go, another 3 to 4 years, it could legitimately be 1,200 or 1,030 or something like that. And at that point, I wouldn't expect any of the active guys to come remotely close to it.
Health's important too, because Ovechkin throughout his career has been shockingly healthy. His first 11 seasons, the most games he missed in a year was 4. So Austin Matthews, for example, is already way behind in that regard. Granted, Ovechkin did have to deal with lockout issues, lost, put it all together about a full season because of COVID, with the one season being short and the following season being half-sized. The lockout 2013 was a half-size season. So that could be a boost in someone else's favor, that they'll just have more full seasons to play potentially.
Yeah, for all we know, they're going to go to like 86 and 90 games, knowing how much more revenue they want. So that could also play a factor. But yeah, I've said it before, like, I did like a record tier list, and it's like Gretzky's, I don't expect it to get broken in my lifetime, but if because of the social media era, people having short attention spans, it's possible that they just like blow up in terms of the scoring. Like they make it so scoring friendly, and teams are in games are averaging like 4 or 5 goals a game, and you just have a guy that plays till he's 45 years old and can break those kind of records. So never say never. I hope it doesn't happen. I hope we don't get to the point where it just turns into some kind of track meet. They start playing like 3-on-3 or 4-on-4 or something like that. But I would not expect, maybe in our lifetime, because we're 25 years old, it's not like we're 55 it gets broken, but I would be shocked if it happens in the next 30 years or something like that. You agree?
I'll say 20 years.
Ooh, okay.
I mean, that's about how
Gavin
long
McKenna
we
coming
went.
in. Gavin
What, 25 years, about how
Yeah.
long the record stood for? Closer to 30?
Yeah, when he retired, 2000. Yeah, so about that. All right, we'll move on. Brock Boeser. This happened like 2 or 3 hours ago. Brock Boeser was speaking on whether or not he'd remain a Vancouver Canuck, and he said, honestly, it's pretty unlikely at this point. It sucks. It's unfortunate. I'm trying to play good hockey, and then we'll worry about everything after. We've known it's been a roller coaster every year. There's been a lot of different things. Vancouver's just such a fucking disaster. Like, it's embarrassing. You thought that they would definitely trade him at this year's deadline. They weren't a playoff spot, but they weren't any threat to do anything in the playoffs. They decided to hold on to him. Alvin said that he didn't get a great price, but I just refuse to believe that in a market where Anthony Beauvillier and Tanev both got second-round picks. Brock Nelson got a shit ton. Plenty of other guys. Bjorkstrand and Gord got combined. I know Gord got double retained, but they got 2 first-round picks and a second-round pick. I refuse to believe that there wasn't an offer, at least for a first-round pick or at least a B-plus prospect. And considering he's already, before the end of the season, saying, like, I'm not re-signing, I can't imagine like something happened in the last month or so where they grew so far apart. Like, you probably knew he wasn't re-signing. Vancouver's just a mess, man. I didn't hate the Marcus Pettersson deal in the moment because I think he is a very good player. But looking back on that, they probably shouldn't have done that. They probably shouldn't have. They should have waited because that Rangers pick could be 10th through 15th, depending whether or not they want to keep the pick, because they have the option to keep the pick, even keep or send the pick, even if it's top 13. They could have, if they did this properly, they could have had like the 12th, 14th, and 25th overall pick in this year's draft, and actually have like a decent plan to retool. And now it's looking like, yes, they'll have some money this summer, but like the forward core is going to be like Pettersson, DeBrusk, Hedel, if he can stay healthy, Suter, and like some overpaid 28, 29-year-old. It's honestly depressing. Like when me as an Islanders fan is saying like, how are you mismanaging your future this fucking bad? That's when you know it's bad. Like Lou Lamoriello was more forward thinking about the future than the Vancouver Canucks in terms of asset management.
Yeah, I mean, Vancouver kind of strikes me as an organization. Who knows where it's coming from, if it's the ownership level or someone further down there, but just like an ideological refusal to rebuild. Like they're not avoiding a rebuild because they think it's in the best interest of the team. It's just like the concept of a tank is off the table. Whether that's for financial reasons, I can't imagine it is, frankly, because I would think Vancouver would support their hockey team no matter what. So maybe it is. My pulling out of my ass guess is it's mostly like an ownership pride type issue of we refuse to tank. We want to always be retooling and trying to scrap for the 8 seed every year. I'm not surprised at all about Boeser. Clearly, Vancouver's locker room is messy and challenging in ways that trading JT Miller away did not magically solve. Boeser, throughout his career, has been a very streaky player. He's also been a player who seems like a lot of that streakiness has been mental for him. He's gone through quite a bit in his Vancouver reign. So I'm not at all surprised that he'd be looking to go somewhere else. Even if Vancouver offered him a competitive salary, I would guess that he would want to test the market.
Yeah, there was reports that he was offered a 5-year deal at $8 million, which I think is a respectable AAV, but I'm sure somebody's going to give him some like 7 by 7.75, some 7 by 8, if that's what like Elias Lindholm got roughly. Brock Boeser has been more consistent than, say, an Elias Lindholm. And yeah, if you're Boeser, like, you don't see a path to real contention in the next 2 to 3 years. And he's only made the playoffs twice in his career with the Vancouver Canucks. He got there in what, 20, I think he was a rookie at the same time as Matt Barzell. So 2017, 2018. So he's been there for a while and they've regressed of late. So I don't blame him saying like, let me either go get paid, go get the bag and make my generational wealth, or just saying maybe I'll just take a lesser deal, but actually go win. Go be happy in a locker room that is actually put together and has a real chance to win. Yeah, I greatly appreciate it. Appreciate this mindset from Brock Boeser. And if I'm a Vancouver Canucks fan, I'm horrified that Quinn Hughes might start to think the same. Like what?
Same.
Demko can't stay healthy for the life of him. Elias Pettersson looks like a shell of himself. Like it is. There's real question marks about the Vancouver Canucks going forward. And Brock Boeser
I agree.
Yeah.
Quinn Hughes. If he hits the UFA market, will set the defenseman contract record. He does not need the 8th Vancouver year to set the defenseman contract record as a free agent.
Imagine
I don't really see any incentive for him to stay in Vancouver, quite frankly.
Yeah, I think with Quinn Hughes, like, imagine they somehow let him walk for absolutely nothing. Like, I think with Quinn Hughes, is he extension? No, he still has 2 years left after.
2 years left.
He's not extension eligible. Like, yeah, that's a scenario where like you go to him on July 1st, you try to work something out. If they miss the playoffs next year, like I think we think that they will, you got to trade him. Like Brock Boeser, yeah, you should have traded him at the deadline, but getting the 28th overall pick would have been really nice, but it won't make or break the entire franchise. If they somehow let Quinn Hughes walk for absolutely nothing, that will plunge you into a dark ages like you'll never see. You want the fan base to turn on you like they might after JT Miller and Brock Boeser leaving. Quinn Hughes leaving for absolutely nothing and going to New Jersey or something like that would be one of the would be John Tavares on steroids, in my opinion, just because he is that next level talent and is hitting the open market at 26, 27 years old. Yeah, I don't know how they dig themselves out of this, mainly because of Demko also just being a massive question mark.
If they do need to completely rebuild, it'll be a long process because they don't have a single blue chip prospect in that whole system.
I like Willander, I like Lekkerimäki, but yeah, definitely more so.
There's
The
no
top
one in
six,
there
yeah.
who you would say like I would bet a lot on this guy
Yeah,
being a star.
yeah.
No one who's like 100% confident.
Yeah, Lekkerimäki was like, he could score 35 goals if he's playing with Elias Pettersson on the first slide. Tom Willander was like, he could be a good top pair defenseman if he's playing with Quinn Hughes. It wasn't like, yeah, like driving their own line, dominating their own pair. They were looked at as potential replacements for some of those guys that were potentially aging out. And now, yeah, when those guys have to potentially be the faces of the franchise in 3 to 4 years, no, it's not going to work, and they're truly in one of the worst spots. And even this year, they're going to miss the playoffs and only end up with like the 13th or 14th overall pick. They just kind of stayed okay while St. Louis and Calgary played far better. It's not even like they're Boston Bruins where they were able to tank it up the final 3 weeks of the season. Okay, we're going to be moving on to Zane Parekh, was called up by the Calgary Flames. Everybody got excited. Then, like 5 minutes later, an insider tweeted out that they don't expect him to play at all until Calgary's mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. We're both big Zane Parekh guys. He was my number 4 prospect in the 2024 draft ahead of Artem Leshinov. It's ridiculous. This guy's an offensive dynamo. Calgary's 3 through 6 and their defense score sucks my left nut. And last night, like, you maybe say like, oh, he's a defensive liability. They blow a 3-1 lead with 5 minutes left in last night's game. Then come 5-on-5 when you could use a guy like Zane Parekh and his skills at 3-on-3, you lose it in overtime. Like, it's mind-boggling. We've seen these guys come in and immediately have impacts. Not saying he's Cale Makar 2.0, but Cale Makar went from the college level straight into the NHL level and dominated in the playoffs. It's just crazy. Not saying this is going to ruin his development, but this is just such backwards thinking by the Calgary Flames to not let their guys run. Because even if they make the playoffs somehow, they're going to get killed. Like, you might as well throw Zane Parekh in there and really see what you have next season, especially in a situation where I assume he's going to be a full-time NHLer next year, but he can't play in the AHL because he signed his ELC. And with the CHL rules, you either got to play in the CHL or the NHL. You can't play in the AHL. I mean, he's practicing with the team. You're going to get a decent read on him, but to not give him NHL action, yeah, this just keeps me lower on the Calgary Flames, who I've hated on a decent amount. But love them for this pick, but they're somehow bungling it up late in the season.
Agreed. Wait until we're mathematically eliminated doesn't make sense in this situation because, spiritually, Calgary is already eliminated, right? We can be pretty clear about that here. They're not mathematically eliminated yet at time of recording, but functionally, they're not going to make it. The idea that what if he struggles defensively, I don't see why that matters or why anyone should care. Struggling at the NHL level is how you grow, A. B, like you said, Calgary is already spending a lot of ice time on defensemen who struggle defensively. C, Calgary's power play is pretty poor. 0 for 5 on the power play in that loss, too. Zane Parekh could, right now, jump in, be their number 1 power play guy, I imagine, do a pretty okay job of that. You can shelter him as your number 6 D-man at even strength and just play him on the power play if that's why you want to ease him into it. But absolutely no reason to be sitting him like this.
Yeah. I'm not all saying like 22, 23 minutes a night, toughest matchups matched up against Leo Carlson's line. But yeah, like 16 to 17 minutes, mainly start him in the offensive zone, put him on the power play. Calgary Flames, they desperately need a dynamic talent like this. And just to see them run out the same roster after doing basically nothing at the trade deadline to either prioritize the team now or in the future, preferably in the future, it just seems like they just have such backwards thinking, and it stinks. And I hope next season that Zane Parekh is at the NHL level and playing a decent amount. But if they somehow send him back to the CHL, which I'd have no clue why they would do that, or decide to play him like 16, 17 minutes a night next year, I'll start getting concerned for his development in Calgary. But I still think even if you fuck up his development, he'll still at the bare minimum be a good top power play second pair guy. He's that good of a talent. But this guy could be a Walmart version of Cale Makar.
Agreed.
Just let him cook.
This is Calgary's 1 blue chip prospect to me. I mean, when I say blue chip, I mean like this guy
Dustin Wolf,
will
but he's
not
not a prospect
bust.
anymore,
Like it's To me, that's the gap, right? What's really the difference between an A prospect and a B plus prospect? A B plus prospect you have high hopes for, but like he could be a bust. It's not out of the realm of possibility. If you're calling a guy an A prospect, it means to me, in my mind, there's really no chance that he will be a bust. And that's how I look at Parekh. That's the only guy on Calgary who I look at that way as the prospect. So they need to be very careful with his development if they want to have a decent team going forward.
Yeah, right now they don't even have like a number 2. I like guys like Matvey Gridin, Basha, Suniev that they got from the Toffoli trade, but like there is such a gap between him right now and the rest of their prospect pool, and the fact that you're treating him like this, I get horrified at how you're going to develop the rest of your prospects.
Yeah, literally the entire rest of that prospect pool. It's like, you're allowed to have hopes, but like if that guy never plays 40 NHL games, I wouldn't be shocked. It's possible. Better prospects have been busts. Zane Parekh, you need to treat that man with care because he could be like a 10 to 15 year face of the franchise piece.
Yeah, and this year they're not going to get another blue chip guy. They're going to be
they're
picking
too good for that.
15th or 16th, and then Florida's pick is probably going to be 20. Actually, it might actually be like 22nd or 23rd. But if they make the Eastern Conference Finals, it goes all the way back to 29th overall. So like, hopefully they finally take it up in 2026 or something like that. But yeah, right now it's him and Dustin Wolf to start the season. I get that they eased him into it, but he probably should have been playing. They would have been maybe in a playoff spot right now if they weren't splitting him and Dan Vladar starts the first 2 to 3 months of the season. Like, that was ridiculous, and it hurt them in terms of potentially making the playoffs. So, yeah, hopefully he gets... They're 5 points back. They do have 2 games on hand on the Minnesota... No, not Minnesota anymore. The St. Louis Blues. Just throw him in there. It's just very unfortunate. I was gonna watch, I'll be watching if he is playing in the next game. Must see TV. I only threw on the game once they were blowing that lead late, just to kind of laugh at them. But we're gonna move on to Isaac Howard. Elliot Friedman tweeted out or reported that he was not going to be signing with Tampa Bay Lightning this spring. He was going to be returning for his senior year at Michigan State, and they were not simpatico on the same page in terms of what they wanted. I guess that Tampa basically told him you'd be at the AHL level next season. Howard said, I'll go back to Michigan State. I'll make $150K, $200K in NIL money, which isn't that much different than like an AHL salary. So this is interesting because he is now a senior. If he decides to go back and not sign with them in the spring of next year on August 15th, he can become an unrestricted free agent. This guy has had like about as perfect development as it comes in the college ranks. He had 17 points in 35 games in his first year at Minnesota Duluth. Transfers to Michigan State, 36 points in 36 games. Then last year, 52 points in 36 games, 26 of those being goals. I'm not going to act like he is some blue chip prospect because he is a 2022 draftee. But for Tampa Bay, I don't know how you don't swallow it and just be like, okay, we'll give you some NHL games, start that ELC. We'll start you at the NHL level next year. There's no promises, but yeah, you got to get this guy. If they somehow lose him, again, I'm not saying it's like the end of the world. He's not some blue chip, but they have nothing. They have like him and Connor Geeky, not Morgan Geeky, within their prospect pool. So if they lose this guy, they really have no young reinforcements to potentially replace guys that are starting to age with their team. What do you think?
I'm, I guess, less of a pessimist here. I'm kind of looking at this through the lens of Isaac Howard probably feels like he has unfinished business at Michigan State. They were the number 2 seed in the tournament this year and lost in the first round. So from that perspective, I'm kind of thinking it's more along the lines of I want to win a championship or at least come much closer with Michigan State, and that's something I value versus AHL/fourth line role. The problem with like throwing these college guys in is it's a lot easier if your team is worse, right? On Tampa, he has absolutely no path to the top 6 in the near future. It just will not happen. Like, they're a playoff team right now. There's maybe a contender right now, and they will be for next year. Contender win now window. Even like just playing him on the third line help you win more games now than Nick Paul as your third center.
Oh yeah, Nick Paul's obviously better. Yeah,
it's tough, right? I don't really see a lane where he fits on the NHL squad. Except, right, like if he's the 4th best center on your team and the best offer you can give him is play 8 minutes a night on our 4th line, I don't know. I understand why that would be appealing for some guys coming out of college. For a potential Hobie Baker winner who could potentially be leading a Frozen Four team next year, I understand why the college route seems more appealing.
Yeah, it's just, if I'm a Tampa Bay fan, I'm sweating bullets.
I'm not sweating about it.
Really?
I'm really not.
But even next season, but even the season after, there might not be a role for him within the top 9. He might just look at it and say, I can go to some young up and coming team. He's from Wisconsin. If he says, damn, Chicago, say Chicago gets a top 3 pick this year, I could stay home, sign with them right off the rip, be playing within a second line potentially. If he has another monster year next year at Michigan State, like, it's risky with these college guys entering the fourth year. If I feel like if he was still intent on signing with Tampa Bay, he would have released something at this point, being like, I'm returning. I talked to Tampa Bay. We got everything. It's going to be okay. But at this point, I want to chase that national championship with Michigan State. But my intentions are still to sign with Tampa Bay. The fact we haven't got that yet, I think is pretty concerning.
I understand where you're coming from, but I personally am not concerned. I have reasonably, not full confidence, but reasonably close to it. He'll play out next season with Michigan State and then sign with Tampa at the conclusion of next season.
Yeah, that would be perfect, and you would honestly love that if you are a Tampa Bay fan to get a
more
year
years there.
ELC.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, it's tough. And yeah, if this was like a far worse organization, we would be a decent amount worried. But yeah, they're set in terms of wing. I think they're going to re-sign Yanni Gourde. Bjorkstrand has another year, and I think that they try to keep him after that. It's definitely something to monitor. I hope that he releases some statement in the coming days, or else rightfully so. There's going to be a lot of speculation. Could he get traded this summer? If nothing, Cam Robinson tweeted something out, the Elite Prospects guy, being like that looks like it might potentially be on the table because, yeah, if he doesn't have intentions to sign with you, you got to trade him, similarly to Cutter Gauthier. Not that he has Cutter Gautier's value.
He might have like a late first of value, I would think. I wouldn't be shocked if you get a first round pick for him at the draft this year.
I would personally rather have him than like the 27th overall pick. Do they have the leverage to get that done? I think more so an early second or like another struggling young player.
Maybe that's why there's
the
no
NHL
public
level.
statement at this point, right? Because Gauthier and going
Philly
back a little
kept
bit,
it, yeah.
Adam Fox, right? Adam Fox makes a public statement, his trade value tanks. Gauthier, Philly tries very hard to keep the wraps on it to maximize value. So I do think there is something to the idea that, you know,
So you're
for the
agreeing with
team
me at this
perspective, the closer you play the cards to your chest, the better the outcome is, even if he has no intent to sign.
Yeah, so that's why I'm saying that he might.
I understand where you're coming from there, yeah.
Yeah. Isaac Howard to the New York Islanders for a second round pick. Let's lock it in. We're going to move on to Dark Horse for the Stanley Cup. We'll go 3, 2, 1 and give our Dark Horse and kind of just explain it. You ready?
Sure.
3, 2, 1. Los
Vegas.
Angeles. That's not that much of a dark horse.
I feel like they're being very under talked about.
Okay. What are their odds right now? Like 10 to 1 probably?
All I can tell you is that it seems that they're a lot less buzzed about than all 3 of the Central teams.
That's fair. Okay, I'll start with the proper dark horse, the LA Kings. Yeah, they're at 22 to 1. They have the 11th best odds. The 10th best odds are currently 14 to 1. So although I probably would agree that they are the 11th most likely team to potentially win the Stanley Cup, but I would put them in the same grouping as Edmonton, Carolina, Washington, Toronto. They're going to have a tough first-round matchup against the Edmonton Oilers, but when looking at this team at 5-on-5, second in the NHL in expected goals percentage, their overall core doesn't have a ton of deep playoff experience, but their number 1 center, number 1 defenseman, number 1 goaltender have all won a Stanley Cup, so they do somewhat check the box there. Darcy Kemper has arguably been the best goalie in the NHL since he came back from injury, a 24-9-4 record with a .927. And I feel like even though he won a Stanley Cup, he still has something to prove because he kind of played like shit on that run. Like everybody was like, yeah, Darcy Kemper won a Stanley Cup, but he was a system goalie. Yeah, they're deep. They're so deep within their forward core. Kopitar, Kempe, Fiala, Byfield, Lafreniere, Deneau, Fogel's been really good for them. Trevor Moore, Trevor Lewis, Turcotte, Tanner Jeannot is a good fourth liner. Defensively, also deep as shit. Mikey Anderson, Brant Clark, Jordan Spence, Gavrikov, Doughty, Edmondson. They're just a deep team, and I feel like they play decently physical come playoff time. Not saying, again, that they should be 11 to 1 to win the Stanley Cup and still 22 to 1 or 20. 22 to 1. But I think they should be like 16 to 1. I've been shitting on this team all season, but I think that they are somewhat undervalued in like a proper dark horse.
I'm just skeptical because the cliche is always that defense wins championships, and then every year Edmonton plays LA in the first round, and we find out that's not true. Last year, LA had the third best defense in the NHL, gets whooped by the Oilers in the first round.
I just don't think the Oilers are as good of a team, if that makes sense. And also, the Oilers' power play is not nearly as good. It's like used to be back-to-back seasons of like top, either best or like top 3. It's like 8th in the NHL. Yeah, I think the Kings finally have enough to get over the hump. I think some of their young guys taking steps, and the addition of a guy like Warren Fogle could potentially be enough. Again, I'm not even still 100% sure that I would pick them over the Edmonton Oilers. I'm just talking dark horses, and they kind of stood out. They're definitely well above the rest of the playoff fields, the other wild card teams, in my opinion. Minnesota could be interesting. Fully healthy, Eriksson Ek and Kaprizov playing unreal, combining for 6 goals last night. But yeah, LA could be their year. And I've never said this about them. I've said that they've been freaking easy pickings for the Edmonton Oilers the last couple of years. But this year, just something seems a little bit different. And they're so good at home.
Don't quite agree with that all the way, but I do see where you're coming from. It's a very deep defense group, and Darcy Kemper has had a really impressive rebound year. I'll give him that. You're, I guess, right that Vegas doesn't feel like the true definition of a dark horse. I feel like it's fair to say they are by far the least buzzed about and least picked division leader. By far, not close.
I think people, obviously Washington going further in the playoffs, but I think more people would pick Vegas to win the cup. Like more people maybe pick conference final and Stanley Cup final for Washington just because their path's so much easier. But yeah, I think Vegas is, most people would agree, have a better chance to win the cup.
Yeah, it's I mean, I look at Vegas and, you know, they are a top heavy team. So there is some injury risk there. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, everyone's been pretty healthy this year. Pietrangelo has been in and out of the lineup at random for the last month, but he's been in it enough to make me believe that that's all either small issues or precautionary stuff. And the fact is, he's the third best defenseman on that team right now anyways. Stone has had the best run of health he's had since he got to Vegas. And like we've both said plenty of times, he's, you know, playoff, healthy, locked in Mark Stone, probably a top 10 to top 20 at worst player. It's this all-around impact when he's healthy, when he's locked in. You know, they certainly have an easier path than any of the 3 Central teams. You know, I'm sure Dallas and Winnipeg will both be much sexier picks to win the West, but they're going to have to go through each other. So that gives me a lot of pause on both of them. Winnipeg, I'm kind of skeptical of in general, just because they lack the experience. And I also feel like they lack the defensive depth. You're just talking about how LA has this tremendous defensive depth. Vegas, less depth per se, but, you know, you have 3 arguably star defensemen. Winnipeg's defense is Josh Morrissey, and then a lot of guys having career years.
Respect Dylan Sandberg.
Dylan DeMello's numbers look phenomenal this year, but I kind of don't trust that Dylan DeMello randomly putting up great numbers in his late 20s for once in his life is going to carry over to the playoffs. It could. I could be wrong, but I would feel better picking Vegas than them.
Okay. Yeah, I respect that pick. They're definitely, I would pick them over Edmonton. I would probably pick them over Winnipeg. I like Dallas and Colorado more in terms of true contenders. But yeah, the hype has definitely died a little bit for Vegas because just some of the sexier moves that were made by other teams at the deadline. First, Vegas just said, we signed Brandon Saad. We'll trade for Riley Smith again. Familiar. Not the sexiest move. But yeah, they finally have some winger depth. It's really just going to come down to Aiden Hill doesn't have to replicate his 2023 numbers, but can you get consistency? Because I think last year, him and Logan Thompson switched definitely once or maybe even twice during that series. The goaltending was a little bit inconsistent.
Yeah, I honestly think the mainstream perception of Vegas is people got so used to them using LTIR to add pieces that they don't do that this year and everyone writes them off.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like the team's playing any worse than they have the last couple years.
Yeah, people
frankly.
are forgetting that like Hannafin and Hurdle are back. It's not like rentals. This is their first full year on the team. That was not a 1 year little quick thing. This is a completely different team than the team last year, just because Hurdle like did he even play a game with the team after he got traded. Like I know he had some injuries. So, like they finally built up this chemistry and pretty much walked away with the Pacific Division in the process. Okay, now we are back with our follower takes. You got to be following the Instagram page to send these in. It's not even hot takes. It's kind of just like 50-50. And we say whether or not we agree or disagree. Babiak, you ready to dive into it?
It's my favorite part. It gets you guys all worked up.
Yes. Thank you guys for submitting these. Up first, Nicholas Chow Moon says, Sharks unironically make the playoffs before the Sabres and Red Wings. 3, 2, 1.
Agree.
Yeah, I don't expect the Sharks to make the playoffs in the next 2 seasons, but I think by year 3, we'll see if Vegas can somehow keep their devil magic up. Maybe they'll still be in the playoffs, but like Vegas, Winnipeg probably will start to fall off a decent amount, and I think that the Sharks would be ready to go. Celebrini would be at a high level, whoever they pick this year. Smith has been really coming on of late. So yeah, I think what would that be, 2027, 2028? Sharks playoffs. There's definitely a world where the Sabres or Red Wings get in if they do something nuclear, like maybe Yzerman's like, I got to do so much this offseason, just dips into the futures and says like, my job's on the line. But yeah, I'd say by 2027, 2028, I think the Sharks would have like a 65% chance to make it to playoffs versus these two teams the next 2 years. Probably go like sub 30% for them to make the playoffs, barring a big change, considering teams like Ottawa and Montreal are in much better situations right now in the Atlantic, and I don't see the top 3 falling off in the next 2 seasons at least. Tampa Bay is starting to get up there in age, but they'll still be pretty good. So yeah, Sharks making it before. What's your reasoning? Similar?
Yeah, I mean, I agree that the Sharks feel exactly 2 years away from at least being in the hunt for a wild card spot. Like maybe a Calgary this year level performance, but like a much younger and more optimistic team that makes you feel good about year 3. They already have more blue chip forwards than Detroit in that system. Celebrini, Eklund, Smith. I'll take that forward group over Lucas Raymond, and by the time Detroit's decent, a mid-30s Dylan Larkin. They have not successily drafted a second legit forward beyond Raymond. That defense
Casper's been
looks
good.
nice.
Casper's been good, but I wouldn't say blue chip.
It's Yzerman keeps insisting on signing mediocre veterans that prevent his team from getting those super high draft picks to get more guarantee guys. I think Detroit will spend the next 3 or 4 years in purgatory and then kind of have to do another retool from there. Buffalo is a weirder situation because on paper, I like all of their prospects, the guys they draft, but that's been true for like 7 years now. And those guys keep getting called up to the show and then not performing. I don't really understand it, right? On paper, it's like, oh, you have Tage Thompson, Alex Tuck, Rasmus Dahlin as mentors for the next group in of not Dylan Cousins anymore, but Cousins, Jack Quinn,
Benson.
Zach Benson.
He's still doing good, though.
Owen Power, Byram, and it just doesn't come together. Devin Levy seemed to me like the best goalie prospect in the league if you asked me a year ago. Goalies take forever to develop. I'm not saying he won't, but right now the results haven't been nearly where I expected. So I don't even know. I kind of feel like Buffalo's issue at this point is player development, and they can go on another 3 years of drafting amazing prospects and then not having them work out.
Yeah, Buffalo's going to have to spend some serious money. If they somehow acquired a legit top pair or even very good second pair right-handed defenseman and got some experience within their forward core, maybe a more solid second line center than Josh Norris, who continues to get hurt, then I could take them serious next year as a threat in the Eastern Conference. I think they might be a little bit undervalued coming into next year. But yeah, as I mentioned before, I don't see them passing the Senators. I don't see them passing the Montreal Canadiens, who are only getting younger and have a lot of money to spend. So yeah, give me the Sharks that are, there's more of like just a linear thing versus Red Wings and Sabres at this point are kind of just plateauing and might even go down. Say some of their players eventually want out. It could get ugly. So we're going with the Sharks. I think that might be a little bit controversial, but we're going to move on. Matthew Hockey says Nick Suzuki is a top 30 skater in the NHL. So just forwards and defensemen. 3, 2, 1. Agree. Damn, we're in simpatico right now compared to Isaac Howard in the Tampa Bay Lightning. Yeah, I haven't made my updated top 50 skaters. I think he was at like 35 or 36 when I did it in January. So the fact that he's been a top 5 forward in the NHL to close out this season definitely moves me a lot. Probably moves ahead of guys like Jake Gensel, probably. Zach Werenski, maybe. He's cooled down a little bit. I'm trying to think. I think he's just sliding in right there. Maybe 31, maybe 32, but I think right now I would go top 30. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't keep a running list in my head that goes down to the 30s.
I got it.
But, I mean, he's undoubtedly been that this year. He's 12th in the league right now in points. Most of that damage has come at even strength, especially a huge chunk, 22 of his 26 goals at even strength. So I do value that more. That does make me think he's a better player than someone who's more power play heavy. He's driving his own line there, yeah. He's a driver. He's a play driver. He's the best forward on that team, carrying that team. Really, the only argument against him is that he's only been a top 30 player for the 1 year. And some guys in that range, like a Jake Gensel or like, I don't know, a Philip Forsberg, have been much more consistent at being around that level. That's the only argument against it, but I would still put Nick Suzuki in my top 30, I believe.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, especially defensively, what he brings to the table compared to some other guys like a Jake Gensel or other guys that are more so just offensive driven solely. Makes a decent amount of sense. The second to last one, Luke Phillips says no active player will finish their career with over 800 goals. 3, we talked about this a little bit, getting the goal record. 800 goals is obviously different. 3, 2, 1, disagree. Hate how much we're agreeing. Yeah, if Matthews can stay healthy, I think he easily gets it. Again, I don't think he's going to get the goal record, but like, he's on pace, the same kind of pace as Ovechkin. So even if he slows down a little bit, should still get to like 825, 830. Draisaitl could get it just based on what he's done since 2019. He's been a consistent 50-ish goal guy, has been pretty healthy outside of this season. So I think those two, I would probably bet on getting 800. Draisaitl, it depends. As long as he's not saying he's a McDavid merchant, but if that duo stays together, they're going to be dominating together till they're 35, 36. If McDavid were to leave and Draisaitl was in like a rough situation in Edmonton, I maybe wouldn't see it happening. But yeah, I think I would bet if you gave me minus 110 odds on one of those two guys getting to 800, I would hammer that bet responsibly.
Austin Matthews is already halfway there. He's only 27 years old, and he frankly hasn't been healthy. To me, that's the big thing, right? For him to get it, he needs to double his output now. He's on pace to do that by his age 36 season. Ovechkin's 38 now, so he should be able to do it. And that's not Matthews will hit 800 at age 36 if he's healthy. That's if he keeps the same health he has now, which hasn't been great. He's missed 20 plus games in a few seasons now. He's had, like we brought up earlier with Ovechkin, that COVID half-length season. So there's all sorts of major injury issues that could really throw a wrench into it, but even like the normal amount of injured Austin Matthews should get it done, I think.
Yeah, I think as long as he plays to 37, 38, probably should get it. And as we mentioned before, goal scoring is up compared to guys of the past in the 2000s and 2010s. These guys walked into the league when goal scoring went from like 2.7 per game to now it's sitting at like 3.1. Even if it just stays that, I think people are going to be surprised when they see that 1,000 points becomes like not that impressive. Like 1,000 points used to be for guys of late of the last decade. That was kind of the barometer to make the Hall of Fame. Like that was one of the things you had to check. It's probably going to go up to like 1,100 in terms of the impressiveness. Similar to like 350 goals, 400 goals won't look as impressive in terms of a career. So yeah, I think that does happen. And then kind of sticking in Toronto, but a different player. We got this one from Noah M96. If Toronto doesn't make the Eastern Conference Finals, Marner is gone 100% no matter what. 3, 2, 1, disagree. They always talk a big game about, if they don't go that far in this playoffs, and I know this is Brad Treliving's only his second season on the job, but like, I just feel like I've been hearing this for so long. And I get with Matthew Nyes potentially being an RFA offer sheet target, maybe they just lock up Matthew Nyes on some big deal and say, Marner, you can either take probably 13 We're not giving you 14. But I just feel like we thought after the end of last season that somebody was going to go. Marner was going to get traded before his no trade kicked in or something like that. It just hasn't happened. And at this point, I don't think it is. I think they're just going to lock him up on some 8-year 13.5. It's a lot safer for a general manager to do that versus some big trade. Because Brad Living, Matthew Tkachuk didn't want to sign, but Brad Living has seen how bad trading your star winger can pan out. So I think they're going to get something done. Toronto's going to roll over.
My galaxy brain take here is that I think there's a roughly 80 to 90% chance Marner is gone regardless of what Toronto does. If Toronto literally wins a cup...
Well, if he wins a cup, he's cashing out. Yeah, we can agree on that.
Yeah,
You say, fuck that.
I see Marner taking the most money possible on the free agent market. Everything that he's actually done historically has made it seem like he's going to max out his dollars above all else. Probably the best way for him to do that is to hit the open market and see what Chicago or what a San Jose will offer him, as opposed to Toronto. Maybe he likes the comfort and his teammates of staying there. I get the feeling he doesn't love the Toronto media. He'll probably be very happy to go to a much less media aggressive, much less critical market. I mean, if he signs an overpriced contract in San Jose and then underperforms it in the playoffs, not a lot of people are really going to care or notice compared to the hate he gets in Toronto every single year. I wouldn't be shocked if he just doesn't want to deal with that anymore. Cash out.
Yeah, but I mean, he's born and raised in Toronto. He would immediately become one of the most hated Leafs of all time if he took the money, not failed, again, there were highlights, but if he never made it to even an Eastern Conference Finals in his 10-year stint with the Toronto Maple Leafs and then left, cashed in, he would just be so hated. And I think that is...
He's already one of the most hated
but
Leafs
he's still
of
on
all
the team.
time.
He can still turn around. You can say, like, if he resigns and just never wins a cup, it's definitely like, damn it. Like, that's a disappointment, but there's a difference between disappointment and hate. And Marner would be hated if he dipped to go to some different team. If he went to some Eastern Conference team, imagine that. He would immediately become one of the most hated players in the NHL. And I think he won't take a team-friendly deal. Again, I'm saying more so Toronto kind of caves. Because even at the time, although the William Nylander extension has aged well, that was kind of crazy. That was kind of viewed as an overpayment based on what he had proved in prior seasons. He locked up in, was it December maybe, on an 8-year 11.5. So, I don't think Brad Living has this big backbone to say, yeah, hit the open market. I think he's probably going to resign. Now, if Marner completely shits his pants, I'm assuming he doesn't dominate, but he's 6 points in 7 games, 5.6 games. If he completely shits his pants, that's different. They might say just hit the road, but I would expect Marner to get something done with Toronto.
I expect Toronto to try very hard, and I expect Marner to at least look at his options.
Yeah, you're saying Marner's greedy. I'm saying the Leafs don't have a backbone, but that's the episode. Let us know in the comments. What do you think? Go follow the Instagram so you can be involved in these things that we do. Next episode will be probably next Thursday or Friday, whenever the regular season ends, and then we immediately get the playoff matchups. We'll be seeing you in the next one. Peace. Thumbnail.